Hello, everybody. That didn't say the right thing, did it? I thought I saved the title of this. Oh, there it is. Upgrading clean architecture. Alright, that's what I want. Alright, so I've got a pull request in. Let's pull that up. Someone was nice enough to add to the work that I did. Actually, they did it in parallel. Clean architecture. Here's their pull request. This is coming in from Peter Check. Thank you, Peter. I don't know if I've seen you on my stream, but I appreciate the contribution. So he changed a bunch of things, made some updates. I have my own branch that has a bunch of updates as well, so I asked him, hey, how does this compare with my branch, this Net 3.0 update that I worked on a couple weeks ago on stream. And he says that his is better, basically. He did a few different things. He's got Swagger working. He says he moved the DB context to infrastructure. Now, I haven't really had a chance to look at this, so that's what I'm going to do. The fact that my build is failing is not a good thing. Let's see. Bash exited with code 1. Thanks, that's helpful. Alright, well, we'll look at that in a little bit. I did pull down his pull request locally, so let's see if we can open that up. And so, dev GitHub. Oh yeah, to do that, by the way, here's what you want to do. This git fetch origin pull slash whatever the PR number is slash head colon PR dash whatever the PR number is, and then you can do git checkout PR. So that worked. That was my technique to pull on this pull request locally. So let's check it out. Alright, and the other thing I'll probably want to do is do my tagging and stuff. Like, I think I want 3.0 to be master, but I probably want the current master to be tagged as 2.2 so that people can find it. So I'll work on that too today, in case people aren't ready to jump there. Alright, so first let's just make sure it builds. Pretty sure it will. I did this on the command line already. So good, it builds. Let's make sure all the tests still run. Run all tests. It'd be great if run all tests actually showed you the tests running somewhere. Oh, there's my test explorer. Alright, good. Alright, cool. Everything still runs. Let's check a look at what he changed. The probably easiest place to do that is going to be over here. Yeah, that's the one. So in the pull request, we will check out his diff. Let me get my chat going up here. Let's see, that can go away. And that can go away. And let's do that. Alright. So, hello everybody. Got a few people here. Good. Alright, so his files that he changed were... Yeah, that's great. Get out of here. Alright, change the solution. Not sure why these things needed to change. Deployment settings, build properties. Alright. Hopefully this is just a matter of opening it up in a different version of Visual Studio. I'm not sure what the significance of this is. Deploy NuGet package false. Alright. Deployment settings. Turned off some warning. It's adding a lot of stuff here. What is all this? Directory build properties. This is good. This is so that folks, when they use this as a template, can tweak this with their own stuff. That's probably worthwhile. Alright. Build targets. That should be fine. Alright, so most of the stuff is all just config. It's not anything in the code. Get rid of the version number. We were 2.2 on infrastructure, now we're NetCore App 3. Yanked all the version numbers. Alright, container setup. Alright, cool. So we're going to move container setup into infrastructure. I'm a fan of that. Pass in the service collection. Use autofac here, but otherwise base autofac. Alright, that's all good. I was just working with this morning on another project, getting it to work with a different implementation of domain events that I'm using, so I may pull that into this project at some point also. So I've been meaning to do that for a while. Startup setup. Alright, so you're going to have startup call this static method to add DB context, which will then just call the other one. Alright, that's fine. Web project mode, what does that do? I don't know what that does. Let's Google that. Yeah, that's not helpful. Additions, that. None of these things know what web project mode is. Seriously, what is that? That's weird. I don't know what that is. I think I'll have to ask him. I'll ask him in the diff. That would make more sense. That all looks fine. I should be marking these as viewed as I go. This is a nice feature that GitHub has now. Hey Joe, I see you joined in there. Alright, so what else did we change to get this to 3.0? We got rid of a lot of stuff because we moved it into infrastructure. So our startup should be a lot cleaner, which I like. We'll pull in configuration. Convert this into a one-liner. That's nice, that's good. Configure services is just going to delegate to container setup, initialize from infrastructure. Alright. Configure, that's it. So that's a lot shorter, that's good. ASP.NET Core Module v2, that's good if you host it in IIS, which a lot of people do. Okay, and then the tests just all got updated to target framework. That should be about the only thing that had to change on this. Alright, that looks fine. Let's merge this thing in. It runs locally, it runs its tests. Well, let's see. It passes its test. Let's see if it actually does run. So I haven't actually tested that. And it does. Alright, good. So we can list our items. Yay. It's interesting that they've got that working before we load it. That's weird, but okay. Swagger works. Let's get our to-do items. Execute. Seems to work. Alright, cool. So I don't know what that web project mode is, but other than that, I think we're in good shape. So let's go over here. Let's merge this thing in and then sort out the tags and whatnot, and figure out why the build's failing. Actually, let's see if we can figure out the build first. That probably makes more sense. Maybe it doesn't have SDK3. Show me the details. .NET build, version 22105. Of course you don't know what you're doing with 3. Alright, so I need to tell it, let's see, Azure DevOps build .NET Core 3.0 SDK. I'm sure eventually it's going to support it, but I think I probably just need this with the appropriate version. Or this. That looks perhaps even better. Alright, so let's do merge his in, because I don't think I can modify his PR directly. So I can merge his and then I can fix the build. So squash and merge. Use my administrator privilege. Confirm, squash and merge. Okay. Now let's go switch branches. Should be behind by 1, right? Your local changes would be overwritten. I haven't done anything with those. What are you talking about? So I want to make my local look just like master, and that's what this ought to do. Hopefully. Good, okay. So now we can come in here, reload. We should be all 3.0'd up now. Let's double check. Yes. Let's run it. And let's see our test pass. Boom, boom, boom. Perfect. Okay. Now let's look at our Azure pipeline. And where's my YAML that I stole? I want the 3.x one right there. Copy that and throw that in here somewhere. Let's see, probably right at the top, right? Because it's failing. Check out and then build. Boom. Okay, so the very first thing I need to do is going to be a task to use .NET 3.x. Right? Alright, so we'll save that and check out another branch. Okay, now let's watch the build. Always the most exciting thing to do on stream. And I've lost my chat window again. There we go. Joe LaRue also can't find anything about web project mode. Yeah, I don't know where that came from. Alright, so Builds. Why are you not kicking off builds? Dogfood was good. I just drove down. It's about 2 hours south of me. I just drove down yesterday early and gave my talk on ASP.NET Core and clean architecture, and then drove back after lunch. So I don't know. I can never remember which project I need to be in. It's so annoying. Let's go here. It's going to tell me what organization I need to be in. Right here. It's the Ardalis organization. Right there. So can I get to that? I can. Okay, great. So where's my build pipeline? 4 minutes ago. Right, that's the one that blew up. I want to run a new one for pipeline. Didn't I just push to master with... Yeah, where'd my change go? Did it fail? Push, set upstream, build pipeline. Oh, right, I have to do a pull request, because that's how things work. Okay, here we go, compare and pull request. Fixing build to use 3.0 SDK. Create pull request. Now it might run. Super old thing from when you create a web app or a web project or a website. Yeah, that shouldn't be a thing at all in .NET Core, Joe, I wouldn't think, right? I mean, that was, like you say, super old. From like more than 10 years ago old. Alright, so this is done, and this is done, and this is done, and this is maybe done. Let's see if it worked. Pipelines, you're running. You've lasted more than 5 seconds. That's a good sign. Initialize job. Telemetry, welcome to 3.0. Hey, that's a good sign. I think it might work. Alright, so I've been looking at this clean architecture project, and something that struck me recently is that with Microsoft's new support for hosted applications that have basically they're console apps but have support for IOC containers, service collection, and as well as configuration and logging all built in from the get-go, I could foresee more people wanting to build microservices and other types of services, console application style services using a multi-project structure, and clean architecture obviously would make sense in those scenarios. So would it make sense to have like a clean architecture dot service or dot console or dot hosted service or something like that as a different GitHub repo that one could use as a new project template? So if you come in here and you say hosted, worker service, right? Create a new worker service. Call it worker service 1. So this should, sure, give it Docker support. This should be something that would have a lot of the same services and things here that you could have in an ASP.NET Core app. And then your worker thing just runs, right, and does its work. You can create one of these if you haven't played with them yet. You run it, and it has support for settings and all the other stuff that you'd have to add manually if you just created a console app. So would folks think it useful or find it useful to have something like this with a solution framework set up just like the clean architecture one has for ASP.NET Core? Oh, is this thing actually running in a container? Because I told it to? That's nice. So then how do I stop the container? It has no container tooling in here. That's interesting. "54 seconds, this guy. Dead. Alright. Nobody wants to comment on whether they would find it worthwhile to have a template that had everything else in here that you would want? Well, I'm probably going to do it anyway, so there. Alright, so let me minimize that for now. Let's go verify that my build passed. It says it failed. That's not good. This one just hasn't finished yet. Or has it? No, it passed. So I just need to refresh this. 10 tests passed. Azure pipeline failed. Oh, because master is still failing. That's why. Okay. So let's see my pull request. Fix the build. Green check mark. Squash it, merge it. Confirm. Alright. Ah, okay, that's interesting. So if we're in web project mode, then it'll do a certain thing. Interesting. Alright, so this pipeline should run again now on master. And there it goes. And this one on the pull request took about 2 minutes, 10 seconds, so that's fine. Let's go back to the code. The other thing I want to do with this sometime soon is update my lab that I use in my workshop for DDD with ASP.NET Core. And it starts from this project. So as I'm updating this project, it's going to impact how my lab starts. And honestly how the whole lab goes. So sometime soon on stream I'm going to have to do that because I have another workshop coming up soon. The next one, the next public one is Dev Intersection. You can, if you go to devintersection.com, anybody interested, workshops, let's see, it's the 18th I believe, and I have a 2-day workshop here on my workshop name. There you go, that's me. So getting started with DDD and ASP.NET Core, and then part 2. So what is this? November 17th. So I gotta get it done by then. So we'll need to work on that. That might be something I spend some time on today. We'll see. This part's gone pretty quickly, so that's good. Alright, so this should be done. Our code coverage is being reported and everything successfully. It's not great. Let's look at our tags now, though. So, .NET Core 2.0, I probably want a .NET Core 2.2 tag, and then I probably want to update the README to reference that. So, let's do that. To add a tag, can I add a tag easily in a commit history in here? I don't think that's a thing. Right, like right before we jumped to 3.0, we probably wanted to put in that tag. And that's going to be easier, I think, with a tool like GitKraken. seeing it. So I guess we gotta go find it the hard way. Alright, so here we are. There's the pull request I pulled in. There's me upgrading to 3.0, and we're just going to throw that away. I don't think I had anything in there that was too exciting. So this one I think is the one we want to apply a tag to. My tags, .NET Core 2.0, I guess we'll use the same format. So let's do create tag here, .NET-Core-2.2. And that's basically where that's going to end up. And then I need to push that to origin, which hopefully will push the tag. And so if we go back here, and we view the tags, we see .NET Core 2.2. Alright. Nice. Now I can take that, and we can go back to master. And let's just update the README, which we can do right here. Alright, so let's do blah blah blah. Give it a star, available as a project template. Versions. The master branch is now using version using .NET Core version 3.0. If you need a 2.x version, use one of these tagged commits. 2.2. 2.0. I don't think I have a 2.1. Hopefully that will work. The idea of including a service worker project as a way to demonstrate how one might start to move in the direction of that sort of distributed app seems like a good idea. Benefit from using, okay. Also, the chat delay in Twitch is annoying. Yeah, sorry about that. And just to be clear, I'm not thinking about adding a service worker to this clean architecture template. I'm thinking of creating a new clean architecture template for a service worker. So if you had a complex service worker that needed a domain model and infrastructure and unit tests and all those good things, you could do it that way. Does that make sense? I don't know if that was clear before. Alright, so let's commit this. Let's see if these work. They work. Alright, cool. One works. The other one works. Alright. And I'm not going to go through all this right now. Alright, so I think we're in good shape. So I'm going to announce that this is done. We'll just throw that on Twitter, which I have somewhere over here. Alright, so tweet, just upgraded my clean architecture template to .NET Core 3.0. You can find it in previous versions here. Dun, dun, dun. Alright, so there's that. Alright, let's do a quick poll of people in the chat. I see what you mean. Okay, so question, now that there's a handful of you. Show of hands, who would rather spend a little bit of time working on a clean architecture template repository for a hosted service, like one of these worker services, where basically we would come up with some, default work that this would do, but we would also then add an infrastructure project, a core project, some tests, etc., and make a whole solution out of this for if you had a particularly complex worker service and you wanted to use a proper architecture for it. So I will do that eventually, but not necessarily today. So that's option one. Option two is I have a lab that I do for my one course, and it's this DDD Guestbook. And usually it takes me maybe an hour to go through this lab. And I can pull the lab up somewhere. I've got it. I've got a link to it. Here's some of it. Yeah, there we go. Labs.pdf. So in here you've got the labs. This is an old version of it, I'm sure, from 2017. So I can grab a newer version. But essentially it talks through creating a guestbook off of the clean architecture and then adding features to it. So add entries to it, then start refactoring, start using domain events, etc. So it's a pretty quick lab. I can probably, if it weren't for the fact that I just broke everything by upgrading to 3.0, probably can get through it in like less than an hour. But students usually take a little while longer. So your choice. I don't have a voting app in my stream, but if you have a preference, tell me, would you rather do a clean architecture worker role or the lab? Anybody got a preference? I'm leaning toward the lab. I'll probably do the worker role maybe next week. Because I'm actually at a client next week and they might want to do the lab. And then it would be good if I knew that the lab worked. Now that I just broke clean architecture by merging in that PR. Alright, so Joe, come on, you gonna be contrarian there? I think my vote's lab, and I've got my vote doesn't count anymore. But between me and TBD Gamer, we outvote Joe. Haha, more lab people. All right, let me see if I can find. Let's do that. And is that the right? That is the right computer, so I can pull up my lab. When's the last time I gave this thing? It should be in there. Boom. So we'll take that and throw that up here. So I'm going to update this thing as I go. So this is from June. We're going to say this is now October. I wonder if I do this at a client and they don't have 3.0, if they're going to be allowed to install 3.0. Hopefully they will be able to. I will tell them they must. Alright. So there's that. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so for any of you that, well, okay, I don't expect any of you are actually following along on your own. That's not usually how this works. But if you are, you just need to make sure you've got .NET Core 3.0 installed. And I will probably throw this up on my second monitor as well, so I can refer to it. Alright, and this can probably change. 3.0. Alright, so first thing I need to do is actually follow these instructions. So we're going to go over here and get out of the clean architecture. In fact, we'll just go to my Scratch folder to create this new throwaway lab. And it says, go and clone this to a working folder on your machine. So we'll call this the lab. So git clone, what's my clean architecture? I really just want this URL. Alright, so git clone that to DDD lab. Boom. Alright, cd DDD lab. Alright, so let's put this over here and this over here, and that right there, and clone this sample. You should be able to run the application with .NET Restore, and then .NET Run. Well, that was really fast restore. Let's go to the web project. And we already tested that this works, so this should be fine. You concede. Ha 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 ha. Thanks, Joe. Alright, so that's on localhost 57679. So let's pull that up. Localhost 57679. And we can list items. Now something changed along the way, because it used to be you had to click on load first, and when you would click the list it would be empty. So somebody, maybe it was me, changed it to seed that thing. But that's fine. And my load method apparently is adding more every time. Well, that's, maybe it's not. Okay. Somehow it's duplicating now. Weird. I'll have to fix that. But it works. That's the important thing. So let's get on with it. So that's Lab 0. That's the Can I Run a .NET Core 3 app? Once you get past that, you go here and we say, hey, you need to create a domain model with a guestbook entry, etc. Here's the code for it. So let's jump in and do that. I need a name and a list of entries. So let's close this. That's not the right one. And let's close this, because we're not doing that right now. And let's realize that we didn't do this, so I want to make sure I do that. So let's Control-C, shut this down. What's the command to open up Explorer locally? In PowerShell. Anybody tell me how to open up Windows Explorer in PowerShell locally? Does anybody know? It's not Explorer, is it? That'd be too easy. Oh, it is. Okay. But it didn't open it in that folder. I want to open it in that folder. Is Explorer dot? Yes. Thanks. Jow of BBG, thank you. Alright, so I want to just rename this here to be my lab DDD Guestbook .solution. And then I can open it. Alright. So I'm going to be referring to instructions some of the time on my other screen, but I'll show them here first, and I'll even give you guys a link to this, which I'm not sure you can get to. Let's see, can I get a shareable link? Anyone at all? Anyone anywhere, public, on the web, anyone on the internet can find and access. Anyone with the link. Okay, there we go. If you have this link, you can view. Fine. So copy that link, and we'll paste it in here. So if you want to see the lab, you can grab it right there. Done. Somebody confirm that works, please, because that kind of thing doesn't always work for me. Alright, so I'm going to add these two things, and I've got them up on my other machine. Right there. We'll keep chat right there. It works. Awesome. Thank you, TBD Gamer. And we're going to quickly type up, what happened to my beautiful dark theme? I must have opened up a different version of Visual Studio. Dark theme. Thank you, Jeeper. Works for 2 people. Alright, so we're going to go into our to-do item here, and we're going to quickly create a couple classes. And the reason I'm doing it from to-do item is because it's faster than saying add new item. Let me get to the right page on my other screen. And we're going to say public class guestbook, base entity, and it's got a string. name. God, I can't type. Oh, I hit caps lock. And it's got a prop list of guestbook entry, which is not yet a thing, of entries, and that's a getter only, which will initialize to a new list of those. Alright, and we're going to need that, and then we also need a public class guestbook entry base entity, and it too needs some properties like a string email address and a string message and a date time offset. Oops, I guess you can't do the using statement in the middle of your property macro. Date time created equals date time dot UTC now. Don't forget to initialize your property collection to new list to avoid null reference exceptions later. Alright, I did. Now the reason I put these in this file is because then I can just say control.move, click control.move, and now they're where they belong. So for speed purposes, I try and create new classes by just starting them in a class that's already in the right folder and then doing control dot to move them, because otherwise doing this and adding and this and going into this, it's just a lot of mouse movement that I don't like. Alright, now UI and viewModel. Alright, so the home page will display the guestbook name and up to 10 entries. Create a homepage viewModel in the viewModels, create this folder, and then in the web project add these properties to the viewModel. So it's going to look like this. So we go over here, we go into the web project, we don't have a viewModels folder, it told us to create one. So we say add new folder viewModels, right click, and I have to do it this way because I don't have a class in here already. This is going to be homepage viewModel, like that, and then I'm just going to grab the stuff that was already on the other one, property string guestbook name and property list of guestbook entry, which is previous entries. Right? And that, I'm not sure why I don't have a setter on it. It's a viewModel, so I could probably use a setter. There might be some good reason for me to have done it that way though, so I'm going to leave it like that. And pull in core. Alright. Let's go look at our home controller. And this says go to the index method here. And our instructions now say to do this. Create a new guestbook called My Guestbook. Add a few entries, just hard code them. Create a view model and return a view. And then modify the view. So the controller looks like this, the view looks like this. Alright, so that's what I'm going to be typing here for a moment. You won't see this because I'm looking at my other screen. Alright, so in here, we want to just create a new guestbook. So our guestbook equals new guestbook. Name equals, don't help me, name equals my guestbook. Just like that. Alright. And we're going to add some entries. Guestbook.entries.add. New guestbook entry. And you need to have an email address of steve@whatever.com and a message equals something, and a date time created equals date time dot UTC now dot add hours -2. Alright, I don't need that. I don't need that so big. Let's add a couple more of those. Michelle at example.com and Brendan at example.com. We'll get rid of my real domains here. Hi, we'll say hello, we'll say howdy, and we'll change these times to be -1, and we'll just get rid of it entirely for the last one. Like that. Alright, so now we added some entries. We'll create a new view model. Var view model equals new homepage view model control dot. Oh yeah, there was a tool that did that. Somebody told me to use last week. Karnak or something like that, which I installed. It's that. And if I have that installed, then when I do control dot stuff, you'll see it in the bottom right of my screen. Hey, VWhiskey, thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Alright, so now continuing on in my lab, let's say view model dot guestbook name equals guestbook.name and view model dot previous entries equals, actually I can't do an assignment, so dot add range guestbook dot entries. Right. Okay. Then return the view, but pass in the view model. Here we go. Alright, so that's that. Now the only thing left in the lab for this step is to update the view. So we're going to go back to my views, home, index, take all this stuff here I don't need, get rid of it. Which I think I'll just trash all of it. Like that. And change this to be guestbook. Actually, I don't think I even need that. Oh, yeah, okay, it does say to do it. So, DDD guestbook. Alright. Yeah, model, clean architecture, dot web, dot view models, dot homepage view model, h2, guestbook at model dot, capital model dot guestbook name, and message list looks like this. OL class equals round. Theoretically that's a thing. That's what my lab says. If not, model dot previous entries dot any. If I don't have anything, we'll just have one item in here. No messages. Nobody has left any messages. How sad. Alright. Otherwise, I'm going to for each our entry in model dot previous entries dot order by descending on entry such that entry dot date time created. There's that. Make another li, class equals arrow, and h5 entry dot email address, still in the H5, entry dot date time created. It'll just two-string that for us. And display the message, entry dot message. Alright, now it says run the app. You should see 3 messages. So we'll build it, Control Shift B, run it, Control F5, and of course we need to create web as a startup project. Let's see, did I tell anyone to do that in here after downloading it? I thought this ran before. This is weird. You should be able to run blah blah blah. Oh, I only ran it from the console. I didn't run it from Visual Studio. That's right. I'll add a note in here. Let's see. For the labs, we'll only be using in-memory data. Is that true? I'm not sure that's true anymore. I might need to change that. Because in here, I think I default to SQLite now. Oh, then I'll move to infrastructure. Container setup. And startup setup. SQLite. Yeah, so I think, let's pull up the lab here so y'all can see it. I backed this up a little bit to here. So for now, labs will only use in-memory data. So there's no database. The application data will restart each time it's started. I'm not sure that's true anymore, so I may need to update that. The other issue is, okay, to run from Visual Studio, you will probably need to set the web project as the startup project. We'll assume people can figure out how to do that, and we'll just drop this comment for now so we can keep everything on one page. Alright. So we got to here. I'd like it if this went on the previous page as well. Example. Don't need that example. There we go. That fits. Alright, so it ran. Oh no, it didn't. We didn't try that yet. Let's do this. So to start a project. And now we'll see if it runs. Anybody have any questions? So far this is pretty simple. Alright, there's our list. 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock. That's good. Copyright 2018. I should update that. Is there really a copyright in clean architecture? That seems weird. Must be in the layout. Really? We're gonna fix that real quick. I should make it just say year. Karnak is outputting every character you press. Yeah, if I do a password. Thanks. I appreciate it. Let's just commit this directly to master. That doesn't help my thing I'm doing now, but should be alright. Yeah, I think there's a way to tell Karnak to only output control characters. I haven't done any configuration on it, so I think it's fine. I don't anticipate doing any passwords. And if I do, I'll just change them after my stream, which I've had to do before when things have accidentally been displayed. Alright, so that's lab 1, and that seemed to work, right? Here, so that's running, there's the lab itself. So now we're going to add entries to the guestbook. So we're going to add a form, we're going to use the repository pattern. If anybody wants to debate me on the repository pattern, go for it. Display up to 10 of the most recent items from persistence now. So first thing we're going to do, details. includes a repository and EF repository implementations. You can see them in the to-do controller if you want. Follow this example to pass an iRepository into home controller's constructor. Now this probably needs to change. So I think the repository implementation has changed since this went into place. So let's see if we can just follow the text of the instructions and not the screenshot. But maybe it's good. Actually, no, I think it is good. Maybe it didn't change. This has been updated since it changed. So that's good. Alright, determine if there's already a guestbook. If not, create and save one. Okay. So, again, I'm going to look at my other screen to do this. But this is basically what I'm going to do. I'm going to inject a repository. I'm going to check it to see if it's got any entries in it. And otherwise, I'll do the create that I already have. And then, in either case, I'll fetch the repository with ID 1 and grab its entries. Now, there's some ugly stuff in here where I was having to do entries.clear and an add range. That was a hack because of the way in-memory was working. I'm hoping that now that I'm using SQLite, that won't be necessary anymore. Alright, so let's close these things. Go back to home controller and do some dependency injection. So we want to inject an iRepository. So there's that. Now that I've got a repository, I can check it and say if repository.list guestbook.any. If I have any guestbooks, so I need that to be a link statement, and I need this to say not any. I almost feel like I ought to create an extension method called none, because I do this not anything frequently, but the any is way over here, and the not is way over here, so it's like easy to miss the fact that I'm notting that. Alright, but so if there are not any of those, then we're going to create the guestbook and its entries, and then do a repository.add on the guestbook. And I don't have to tell it it's a guestbook because it can tell that from the type. Are you on a treadmill? I am. Sometimes I work on a treadmill. Helps me think. Gets my steps in. Although my Fitbit died, so my steps don't actually count right now, unfortunately. I need to buy a new Fitbit or something. Alright, so there's that. If not, list guestbook any, do that, add guestbook. Alright, so then down here we're going to fetch the guestbook. Now this won't actually make another round trip to the database because this add right here is actually going to be inside of the identity model of Entity Framework. So when I turn around and say, hey, go get me that guestbook, I'm going to say repository.getById of guestbook for 1, which is hard-coded. Var guestbook equals that. That should be all I need, right? Let's see, what did I do about the names here? New guestbook is what I named that one. And then that one stayed guestbook. So let's do that. So let's make this new guestbook. Alright. Save that. IS Express is still running. Okay, let's follow the lab here. EF repository comes with a generic repository. It requires some updates to support guestbook. Specifically, the DB context needs to have a DB set of guestbooks. So add a DB set of guestbook called guestbooks in the appdb context class. So let's do that. There's my data. There's my appdb context. Here's a DB set of to-do items. That's like my sample. Guestbook. Guestbooks. Alright. That should be what I need there. Now that one I didn't have a screenshot to show, so people that don't actually read often miss that one. So maybe we'll just make this bold so people might see it. Because people don't like to read. At this point you should be able to view the home page and see your test data, which is being stored in persistence and then fetched. Alright, so let's build this. and run it. There is no such table guestbooks. Aha, so that is a problem. Before, when I was doing in-memory, I didn't need to do any migrations, but now maybe I need migrations for this to work. Probably. Is there a way to automatically do migrations? There used to be. Let's see, EF core automatic migrations SQLite. It's from 2017. I don't use SQLite very much. In this article, create migrations, make the first migration, it's in French. Install a bunch of packages, use command line tools to create migrations. After executing these commands, now it's migration aware. You can add the migrations. Alright, this is the standard way, so it doesn't look like there's an automatic migration. In EF6 there was. SQLite provider has a number of migration limitations. Does not support foreign keys. Alright. You've got a not supported exception. I'm using SQLite, well I was using in-memory, and now I've switched to using SQLite specifically because I don't want to have to require that, 100 different students in a conference workshop all have SQL Server installed locally and have the correct version, and then I have to mess with a connection string and make sure it's like, well, it's not just local DB, it's, it's local DB slash MS SQL local DB or slash projects v13 or slash parentheses version 11 or whatever crap, right? So trying to get 100 different students to all be able to connect to something is a problem. So I solved that problem by using in-memory, but in-memory has issues, let's say. And so I've switched to using SQLite, hoping to avoid those issues, but it looks like perhaps I have new issues. So I haven't actually done this lab since switching clean architecture to SQLite. That's one of the things I'm sorting through today on the stream. So I would prefer not to have to do a whole bunch of database migration stuff as part of this, but maybe that's going to have to be what I do. So let's just see if I can simply, let's see, I'm in the right place. Oh, crud, it's going to be one of those ugly, long commands I'm going to have to run. So I have to go to the web project, and then I have to reference the other project. Not a fan. So the command I'm going to have to run is going to look something like this one. Right? So let's see. I'm going to have a whole lab step just on migrations. It's going to be annoying. Alright, so here is, let's just open up, let's just add it as a file here. Add, new item, text file, EF scripts. Alright, it's going to look something like this. .EF migrations, add initial model, context is my appdb context. // stop that. Clean architecture .infrastructure, and then same thing, clean architecture .infrastructure csproj, And this is cleanarchitecture.web.csproj. I hope. Yes. -o data migration. So I think that's what I want. So I need to do this. Run this from the web project folder. Alright. So we'll save that. Go here. Go to web. And paste it. That's not it. Copy it. And then paste it. And pray. Does it work? Does it work? Hey, it worked. Alright, now I just read that SQLite doesn't work with most of the different types of things that might be in my migration, you know, minor things like foreign keys. So what are the odds that this is going to actually work when I do a .NET database update? Because that's the next step. Let's see, .NET database, .NET EF database update. So that's going to look like this. And put that here. .NET EF database update. Context is app db context again. Project is that, and that, and that. And if I can somehow make it so that my students don't have to type all this, that'll be a lot better. Right, so we'll copy that. Come back here, paste it in, and watch and see how SQLite blows up. Boom. Couldn't even create the to-do item table because it already exists. Okay. Well, that's not good. What if we were to say delete the database? Where's that database? I think that'll work. Desert Griffin, thank you for following. Alright, let me find where this database is. Data source is database.sqlite. Where is that? Let's go back here. Is it just in the root of web? Database. Where's the database? Database.sqlite, right there. Nuke it. Run the migration again. Because of course you can always just delete your production database anytime you need to make a schema update. Hey, that might have worked. Okay, cool. So now, let's see if I can run it. Wow, check it out. Alright, so that's cool. So lab 2 worked, but now I gotta update the heck out of it with these instructions. So, okay, so support this, do that. Okay, clean architecture, add DB set. At this point, you should be able to view. No, not quite. You got work to do right at this point. Let's add migrations as its own heading. And let's type a little bit. Apologies, I know watching me type is not that exciting, but I do type reasonably fast. So we need to use migrations to configure the SQLite database the application is using. You can, well, that's annoying, Karnak. Thank you. You need to follow these steps in order to set up migrations. One, delete the database.sqlite file from the web project folder. 2, run this command to create an initial migration from a command prompt in the web project folder, and run this program, and this command to apply the migration. Alright, so that's a colon, that's the command. So let's go find the command. Right there. It's going to be long, but they can hopefully copy paste it. And then the other one is that one. And it goes right there. That probably screwed up all my page breaks. It's not too bad. But there's that. Alright, so what can I do to make this easier to see? I guess we'll make it bold. We'll make this bold. Alright. This command. Alright, good. You should be able to view the home page. Right, so I did that. Cool. Now we're going to implement adding new entries. So update this to include a form above the message that looks like this. You can copy it from this bit.ly address. So let's do that. And we're going to add, where does it want it? Between the H2 and the H3 tags. Alright, so here's this code. I don't think that needs to change. Here's my view. Here's my H2 and my H3 tags. Drop that right there. Okay. That seemed to work. Note that the form posts to the home controller's index method. And the two values are the email address and the message. So now add a new entry property to Guestbook entry's homepage view model. So homepage view model is going to get a Guestbook entry, new entry, like that. And then add a new action method that takes a post, check model state, and do these things. So it's going to look a lot like this right here. Only it should be a little bit simpler. And actually, that reminds me, since this looked simpler, I need to take a new screenshot for that, because mine worked. So where's my homepage controller? Home controller. That's what I need. And I'm going to have to switch to not the dark theme for the screenshot. Oh no, my eyes. Alright. Let's, also for the screenshot, let's make these trimmed down a little bit. So let's put that there. Let's put that there. That's better. And I need what? From the using statement all the way down to the index method. Alright. So that. Print screen. That's probably good. Copy that, copy that. Go in here. Let's delete that and paste that. And then if I shrink that a little bit, it should fit on the previous page. There we go. Alright, and that got rid of some of that junk that didn't need to be there. We're going to do all this. Now we're going to do that post. Alright, so I need a new method. I'll look at it on the other screen. And it's going to look like this. Say HTTP post, public, iAction result, index, homepage view model, and in here we're going to say if model state dot is valid, do some stuff, return view with that model. Alright. var guestbook equals, basically, these are going to be the same pretty much, aren't they? Definitely the first one is. So guestbook, get the guestbook. List of guestbook entries equals that. Why? So the problem with this, let's see, this get by ID, when it fetches the guestbook, I believe it's not going to fetch the entries because I didn't tell it to include them. And so I need a way to add a guestbook entry, and when it was in memory I could do that because you didn't have to worry about includes. But now that I'm using SQLite, that's going to be an issue. So the code that I had before is not going to work. Probably the easiest thing for me to fix it is going to be to get another repository, well, use a different repository method to add the guestbook entry. So I think I just need to say, I've already got the entry on the model. I think I just need to say repository.add model.new entry, and then that's it, right? That might work all by itself. I had a whole bunch of junk in there before. I'll show you. I had all this stuff where it was go get a list of the entries, clear it, add a new one, call update on guestbook. Right, I don't think I need any of this whole big block of junk. That was all to get around some issues with how in-memory worked. So the only question I have is whether this is going to let me work, because I don't have a DB set of guestbook entry. I only have guestbook. So it might know about guestbook entry off of guestbook, but if it doesn't, I'll have to add that DB set. So let's find out. Let's go back here, go ahead and build, and we'll run it. And there's my form. Nobody's left any messages. Oh, that's because... Really? What's going on here? I should have still run this. I'm not sure why it's not working. So foo@bar.com, save. Yeah, that's definitely not working. No, I've really broken it. I wonder if my migrations broke it. Right, so here's this. There's the database, so it's there. Can I connect to it with this? Project. Connect to my local. I want to talk to SQLite. Can I do that from here? So there's your local DB connection, but I don't think I'm using that. Not sure why that's there. Let's look at what this is doing. Configure services, add DB context, container setup, initialize web. Alright, so that's calling that. It says data source is that. Okay. Where's my seed data being called from? Well, okay, the only place I'm seeing it is in the home controller, and that's here. And this I thought worked before. So we create a guestbook, we add it. I haven't deleted it, but for some reason now it's not getting that guestbook at all. Guestbook, sign the guestbook. Guestbook has no name. Guess we're going to debug this. Maybe the ID number isn't fixed at 1 now. So there isn't one with an ID of 1. That could be a problem. With an in-memory database, it always started at 1. Alright, so it's going to run that query. Guestbook came back. Has an ID of 1, has my guestbook, has entries count of 0. Alright. That's my problem. Right, I don't have any entries. So I need to do an include on that. Okay, that makes sense to me now. So, what's the easiest way to do that? We get to this later on in the labs, how to do it with a specification. For now, I might need to create a custom repository for this. It's probably the easiest thing to do. So, I need to do a get by ID. Let's make this virtual. Let's see, if we do this as a virtual method, then we could do a public class guestbook repository, inherits from EF repository, and overrides that one. And says return. I'm just guessing here that I don't know if I'm going to like this approach. db context dot fine. Do that. App db context base db context. The challenge with this particular repository implementation is that it uses generic methods, not a generic T on the class itself. So for me to get a custom guestbook repository that only works with a T of guestbook, that becomes potentially difficult. So it's like, well, if T is guestbook, then do something. I could probably use pattern matching if I really wanted to. Let's see. I'm trying to do this. But I want to say it includes. So we'll say if T is guestbook, is that a thing? Or is it type of T? That's not what I want. Alright, let's look up how to do that. Check type of. Hey, John Calloway. Originally we had an EF repository of T. And I've gone both ways. I have some projects that use both types. The really nice thing about using the generic parameters is, unless you get into this state where you're trying to create a custom one, and you don't need to do this if you use specifications, but I haven't gotten to that yet in the lab. But the really nice thing about it is you don't ever end up with that issue where, like, oh, I need 4 different entities in my controller. I need to inject a a customer repository and an order repository and an order item repository and a this repository and a that repository. You end up with this constructor with like a bunch of different things in it. You don't have that issue here. Let's see, what's another way? Let me rethink how I'm going to do this. Yeah, so you got it, John. What's the easiest thing I can do that doesn't... So my problem isn't what's the right solution, because I'm getting to the right solution later in the lab. My problem is how do I get the students to quickly get this lab 2 completed without getting derailed with trying to add guestbook entries to a guestbook when they fetch it. And I think another option would be, instead of making this thing virtual, another option would be to be able to pass in its include. So EF core include method. What's the signature on that include method? I guess I can just say, use IntelliSense for this. So var something equals dbcontext dot guestbooks dot include, and the include is either a path or an expression of func of guestbook comma t property, right? So expression of func of t comma t property. So if I had an overload of this guy, and I could take in an ID and an expression of func of t comma t property, boom, boom, include, and then in here I could say give me that db set of t dot include, right? That would work, wouldn't it? So control dot that, control dot that. T property is not really a thing though, so how does that come in? Well, I could just make it a string. Make my life easier. Include string. Boom. Okay, don't need that, don't need that. Now if I just make sure, what did we call it in Guestbook? This is all throwaway code, it's going to go away. And here we called it entries. So if we go in here and we make it so we have a get by ID with a string include that gets set up like that, then I can say in my controller, after I update the interface here, let's just see if this works. Do that, do that. That. Alright, build succeeds. All I need is that string, right? So then if I come into my home controller and I say, actually, you know what, go get me this thing with 1 comma entries, right? And then, you know, fit of optimism, I'm going to paste that over here because I'm expecting it to work. But let's test it. We should hopefully have some entries this time. And that's not too bad for the lab. Alright, so here's my guestbook. And now look, it's got entries in it. Alright, so if we let that run, that's a relatively easy. Java BBG, yes, the right solution is to use a specification pattern. In my opinion, that's correct. And specification will let you do the include and whatever else you need. So we get to that later in the labs. But for now, let's get this instructions into the lab. So in order for that to work, I probably ought to be committing as I go here so I can quickly see a diff of what I did from one step to another. Problem is I'm not in a repo that I want to work in. I guess I did clone clean architecture, so I could make a branch off of clean architecture with my work, or just keep it local. Alright, I got 25 minutes left. Let's see. What we did was we modified this repository to include that. So we'll put that in the instructions, which are here. And we're going to say run the application. You should be able to add, yeah, no, nothing works here. Everything breaks. Everything breaks basically here. Like, this didn't actually work, I don't think. Because as soon as we tried to load it from persistence, it stopped working. So let's make another thing here called including related data. And we'll add some more stuff here. So, one challenge when working with EF core behind an abstraction like a repository is how to fetch related data. By default, EF core will only fetch the object, the root object, not related navigation properties, navigation properties. So when we fetch a guestbook, it doesn't include the related entries. To fix this, we will temporarily modify the interface to allow us to pass in the include we need. Okay, in the core project, modify the I repository CS interface to include this line. Can I make that consolus? I can. Nice. Alright, then in the infrastructure project, modify ef repository.cs to include this new method. This really bugs me that it wants to make these ginormous line returns by default. You have to do Shift-Enter to get them to be shorter. I don't know of an easy way to fix that when you're copy-pasting from Visual Studio into Word or Google Docs. Alright, now we just need to tell the repository to include the entries property when we fetch a guestbook by ID. We'll see a more flexible, I don't know about flexible, we'll see a different way to solve this problem in a later lab. Where's my index home controller? Alright, so that seemed like it worked. And at this point, now, with all these changes, maybe it works. Alright, so now let's just run it. there's my messages. Alright. And we said we should be able to post something from Mr. Foo. Boom. That didn't exactly work the way I wanted. So let's see what happened there. Let's just do another debug. That might be fastest. It loads, it's got data. Alright. Come in here, model state that is valid true. Great. So F10, fetch a guestbook. We added that entry directly to the repository. I wasn't sure if that would work. I wonder if I should do the update approach now that I've got the included item. That's probably the way to go. So let's see. My immediate window. Guestbook. Has 3 entries. Okay. I added that one. If I fetch it again, I'll bet it maybe would have an extra entry. I'm not sure. Let's fix this. What I really want to do is to guestbook.entries.add model.newEntry, and then save it. The repository.update of guestbook. That's the pattern I want to follow, and that should work. The only reason I was doing it the other way before was because I didn't have this include. But now that I've got the include sorted out, I should be in good shape. Let's find out. Alright. Nope. Alrighty, let's debug one more time. Alright, so look at that. It came through, but once I posted, it showed nothing. I newed up the... Oh, why am I newing up the model? I don't need to new up the model. Do I? Yeah, see, I newed up the model, and then... No, but that should work. I added the range. I don't want to recycle that model in this scenario, right? Oh, here's the problem. I newed up the model, I never used it. Idiot. So, yeah, here, I need another return statement. I don't like having 2 return statements, so I think I'll clean that up here in a second. Let's verify that works. Sure, cool. Alright, now I need to tell them that they can delete that database anytime they want. So, and also let's see if we want to refactor this to not have to return twice. I can just have this one get used here, which I don't really like modifying an input parameter like that, but I like that it cleans this up a little better. And this will make sure that it gets its slate wiped clean, so I'll live with it for now. Alright, so now I need to update the instructions and mention a couple things. So I don't need that anymore. Right there. Do that. At this point you should be able to view. Okay, did I include a screenshot of the right stuff? Not yet. Okay, well, viewing did work. Then we add entries, we put in this form, we do this, add that attribute, add that entry, check if model state's valid, fetch the guestbook, add the thing to the entries, update the guestbook using the repository, right? And then I don't have to do that. Let's see. Update the model to reset it re-add the entries from Guestbook. Return view model. Okay, so then this screenshot needs to be modified. So screenshot should now look like this. You should be able to add additional entry, distribute not just. That's not true. That can go away. It really is just fetching the correct ones. But we can add a new note. The new note's going to say that your database is going to keep getting more and more stuff in it. Since we're using a real data store, test data will accumulate as you work on these labs. Feel free to delete the, what was it called again? Database.sqlite file. Adrian Hall, how's it going? Working on a DDD lab that I'm going to be giving at a conference next month. I made a bunch of updates to the clean architecture sample, so I need to make the corresponding updates to the lab. And I switched it from using an in-memory database to using SQLite, and that's requiring me to make some modifications as well. Feel free to delete the database.sqlite. Did someone say DD? Oh, yeah, someone did. Yeah, my little stream element thing actually did its job for once. Delete the SQLite file anytime you want to reset the data. There we go. Alright, review questions. Does the design is testable? Blah blah. These are things to talk about. Refactor the code. Okay, GitHub notes. Yeah, that's not gonna work. I'm gonna have to do a 3.0 lab start thing. I should have been doing that. I guess I'll have to do this again. Alright, so I'll go back through and fix that up. We got 13 minutes. Let's see how much of lab 3 we can get through before we call it done. Alright, so lab 3, let's, I don't need that, go away. Lab 3 says notifying users. Isn't SQLite an in-memory database? No, there's actually a file, so it's actually persisted. So this is database.sqlite right there, and you missed it, but if I run the app, I have seeded it with these 3 things if the database was empty, but then I added that, and then I previously added that, and I can say, hey Adrian, look at this, and it shows up, right? But then if I kill the application, which I think is running in SQL Express, let's change that too while we're at it. Run it again. It's going to read that stuff from persistence, and look at that. So it's reading it from the file. Alright, so now we're going to do what we said, notifications. So implement logic in the controller's post-action to loop through previous entries. This is a longer lab, isn't it? Yeah, there's a bunch of steps here. So let's go through this. So first, when we do a post, we're going to notify all previous entries before we add the entry that we are doing this. So just before you add the new entry to guestbook.entries, you shouldn't send it to that. It's already looping before. Alright, so right about here, we're going to for each var entry in guestbook.entries do some stuff. And that stuff, I cannot, oh I can, look at that. I thought it was a screenshot. We can copy paste that And use system mail. Should be good. And then add the entry. Guestbook.entries.add model. Okay, looks good. Manually test it using SMTP for dev. So run it. And I'm not running SMTP for dev, so it's going to blow up. And I should get an error. Boom. Socket exception, not running. Okay. So now come over to my utilities folder and grab SMTP for dev and run that. Oh, come on. .NET 3.5, really? I suppose I could use a newer version of SMTP for dev. Hopefully this is fast. I'm fortunate to have a really fast internet connection and a pretty fast machine, so this shouldn't take more than a few seconds. And students are instructed to have all this stuff in place ahead of time. I should follow my own advice. Successful! Yay. Alright, run. Failed to check. No, I don't care about updates. Just run. Yes, allow access. Cool. Alright, now, if you haven't used SMTP for dev, it's a nice utility that will listen on port 25, and if you try and send emails, like I'm doing here, it will flash up and say, hey look, we just sent these emails. So that worked, right? It didn't work because some of my email addresses aren't actually email addresses, so that's going to be a problem. I will fix that by nuking my database and making sure that I put in valid emails going forward. But now if we come here, no such table guestbook. Yeah, that's a problem. Database update. So I should probably say that you'll have to rerun the .NET database update script. If you do, you will need to rerun the .NET EF database update script. And hopefully that's all you need to do. Let's see if this works. What? Alright, fine. Let's try rerunning it. Close that. Boom. There, now we're good. Now Steve is going to send a message, hi, with notification, and here we're going to delete all of those. Put that right there and hit save. There should be 1, 2, 3 notifications, and there are. So okay, good. So that's in working order. So where does that take us? We did step 1. Alright. Step 2, refactor to use a domain service. That should be pretty straightforward. Create a new interface to represent sending mail, for instance, iMessage sender. Place it in core interfaces. Keep it really simple, like say like that. Alright, so grab that iMessage sender. Core interfaces. Public interface iMessage sender has one of those. That's that. Alright. Okay, then what? implement in infrastructure in a services folder. Is it a new services folder? Yes. In a new services folder, email message sender service. Alright, so over here we say add new folder, services, right click, add a class, email message sender service, public, implements iMessage sender, implement the interface, right? And email message sender service needs to have that. So yank that out of home controller, which I have lost. Here we go. Like that, and stick it in here. And to address is entry dot address, and the message body is that. And then pull in SMTP netmail, system netmail. Alright, so that should work. Now going back to home controller, we need to pass in an iMessage sender here. And then when we're in this loop, we just want to say message sender dot send message with a to address and a message body. Message body to address. Delete all that. Save it. I'm pretty sure the thing says I should run it to test it. So let's do that. 3 minutes to go. Another at somewhere.com. Hi, save. Where's my thing? There we go. Boom, 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 boom. Alright, 157. That's now. Good. So that worked. Close that. Close that. Go back to that. Close that. Close that. Open that. We did that. We did that. Step 3, encapsulation. Create a new interface iGuestbook service. We want to pull the logic for deciding who should get this out of the post action, because we don't want that stuff to be living in our controller. This approach is better than leaving logic in the UI, but not ideal because of all these words. So iGuestbook service in core interfaces needs this method. So let's go back to our interface. So here, public interface iGuestbook service has that method. Move it to its own place and open it to give it whatever namespaces it needs, like that. Now we need an actual guestbook service. Let's go back to the lab. Create a new guestbook service in core services, so, and implement the thing. Alright, so we have a core services, public class guestbook service implements iGuest service with that and that. Put it in its own file. Don't care about that one. Let's close some things here. So here's guestbook service. Close all but this. That helps. And I've got to go in a minute, so I'm going to call this done in about 2 seconds because I've got a client call and I've got to hop on. So in guestbook service we're going to do this stuff, and we're going to pull things from home controller. And so all this work here, well, all this work here, anyway, is going to end up inside of that service. Not really this whole thing. Everything up to the view model. And then the view model is just going to be responsible for that last bit. Alright, so that's where we're at. Sorry I have to wrap it up at this point, but you've got a link to the Guestbook lab, the DDD lab. I'll post. Do I have that link? I'll share this link again. Can view, copy link. I'll throw it in here one more time. So you can try it out if you want. And thanks for watching. Have a nice weekend. I'll see you guys later. So I should raid somebody, but I don't have time today. So go find somebody else to watch. They'll appreciate it. Cheers.